How's it going, guys, and welcome to today's video. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to diagnose and rectify a common fault that's present in some Hyundais and Kias. That fault is when you turn the steering wheel left and right, you can hear a heavy clunking noise coming up from the steering column and into your hands. You can feel it as you rock it back and over. I'm going to be showing you how to diagnose it correctly to make sure that you are getting the right fault, and how to rectify that problem, how you go about fixing it. It isn't the same for every single vehicle. There is some differences, and in this video I'm going to show you how. Alright, so the first thing of note with this fault is not all vehicles in the Hyundai range or the Kia range have the same setup. You may have a very similar noise, but that does not mean that noise is related to the steering coupler bush. That steering coupler little rubber 8-point bush that you can get is the most common fault for this. I'm going to show some clips right now of the different noises that you can hear. First of all, to diagnose the noise. This is the most important thing to do before you order any parts or you start to strip anything down. You want to make certain that the noise is actually the steering coupler bush before you go ripping apart the whole steering column to get at that part. And how you do that is quite simple. You may need a second person if you're not comfortable with doing it, but you reach down under, so you get in under the dash. You hold the lower part of the steering column, or you hold onto the uni joint, which is on the lower part, and with your other hand you rock the steering back and over. That steering rock back and over, you will hear the noise coming from below the motor where the coupler presides, or you will feel it in the uni joint if it's down further. So just by holding one part and rocking the other will give you the information you need to go ahead and fix this problem. We have worked on multiple vehicles that have had a very similar noise, and one of them I'm going to show you now in a Hyundai i20. That Hyundai that I showed just there had a noise that resonated down from the uni joint. The fault was in a uni joint, and it wasn't anything to do with any coupler in those. But you can see how you could get mixed up very easily with the noise. Once you have determined where the noise is residing from, and you have confirmed the fault is in the flexible steering column coupling, you can then set about removing that part. Now, it is quite an involved job in most of the setups, and it's an extremely involved job in some of them. The Hyundai Elantra, one of the last ones I was at, was a lot more difficult than some of the other ones I had done previously. Now, this setup is in Hyundai i30s, it's in Kia Optimas, Sonatas, Elantras. It's in all of those that I know of, and the Hyundai i20 with the noise earlier, that was a uni joint. I believe a Hyundai Accent also had a uni joint type noise previously. We have done a lot of these jobs in the workshop. The last one I was at was the 2013 Hyundai Elantra, and it took a lot more components to be removed to rectify that fault. But in essence, I'm going to give you a breakdown of what you need to do to remove and repair this fault. The first thing you're going to want to do in any cases is disconnect the battery. You do not want to be removing electrical connectors and removing components that are attaching onto the airbag when there is voltage present. So get to the negative on the battery, disconnect that, leave the vehicle for a couple of minutes, and then set about doing your work. You're going to need to remove all the plastic components that surround the steering wheel and on the underside of the dash. So the lower plastics, including the side plastic panel that pops off with just a flat screwdriver. Then there is Phillips heads that remove the lower plastic, and then when you turn the steering wheel to the correct location that you want, you will be able to remove the screws which hold on the plastic that sits around the steering wheel. Once you have that done, you can now move on to the next stage. In this next phase of it, you're going to be removing a lot of electrical components. You're going to be disconnecting all of these electrical connectors that are on the lower side of the steering column and on the steering wheel, and that connect up to either side of the stalks. And if you haven't done this before, a good tip is to take a picture of all of the wiring and the routing so you know the layout, and it's a lot easier to go back to. If you're not familiar with these type of jobs, it is a useful step is to just take a quick picture so you know how to set about putting these items back again. Once you have all of the electrical connectors done, it is about loosening the steering column. That can be, in some cases, 4 bolts or 2 bolts and 2 nuts. And in the last one, which was a Hyundai Elantra, I ended up having to take the fuse board out on the right hand side as well to gain access to a bolt that was sitting coming in this direction on the steering column, and there was absolutely no room to get at it. That was a right-hand drive vehicle. I don't know if the Hyundai Elantra left-hand drives had the same setup or the fuse boards on the left-hand side of those. Either way, I had to remove that part to gain access to it. Once you have the steering column out, the lower uni joint disconnected, I would always advise marking any uni joints so you know, even if there's a master spline, that marking makes it a lot easier to visibly line up. You may need a second person to help you putting the steering column back in, but in essence, that is how you remove it. Once you have the steering column out, bring it over to the bench, and then it is getting access to where that little flexible coupler resides, and it is below the motor. So again, it's different on a couple applications, but you need to remove the motor. You'll be using a Torx in the Hyundai Elantra to take up the motor out of position, and as you can see in this clip, it has completely disintegrated in its location. The job of replacing the part is quite easy. You just need to clean up both surfaces that mesh together. So you want to clean up the motor side and you want to clear up the column side as well. I use an air blow off tool and just a little flat blade so I can scrape off any of the little rubber that has meshed in on the lower part of the teeth. Once that is done, you can sit down the bush again and it is fit back. Fit back, I'm not going to go through in detail. It is in reverse order. Like I said earlier, you may need a second person to help you putting the steering column in. If you are not familiar with doing these jobs, having someone to hold the upper side is quite a useful thing while you start to slot the column back into position. Once you have it back in position, just hand tighten up a couple of bolts or nuts. In the Hyundai Elantra, that main center bolt that holds it in is the first one that needs to go in after the uni joint. You fit it all back together again, connect up all removed components, your electrical connectors all have to be done, routing the cables, putting them all back and putting that fuse board back in position also. I then put on the plastics, reconnect the battery, and then we check to see if the vehicle noise is gone. And as you could see in that last clip, the noise has now been fixed. Now, this was a quick run through of how you do this job. It is similar across most applications. It is the bush in most cases, but always check to see if there is a loose bolt or any play in that uni joint before diagnosing the flexible coupling as your fault. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.